Okay, are we live? Good morning. Welcome to the September 7th.
Recording in progress.
Good morning. Welcome to the September 6th, 7th meeting of the Palo Alto Architecture Review Board. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Baltai.
Present.
Vice Chair Rosenberg.
Present.
Board Member Chen.
Present.
Board Member Hirsch.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is public comment. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address us on any item that's not on our agenda today?
I don't see any raised hands and I haven't received any speaker cards.
Thank you very much. Next item is agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Staff, can we address that, please?
We have none today.
Can I ask a question? So do we still report the bird safety as subcommittee?
So it's going to be part of the regular meeting. So it's not like an ad hoc in the sense that it's going to be after the meeting. If you would like to speak today to that, you are welcome to do so. It would be very helpful. But the NVCAP item did get moved off until October 19th. So if you're ready today, we could do that as an informational item at the end.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Oscar and I do have some summaries of what we find out.
Okay, so that particular item was a request to get the subcommittee of the board to report back on their findings regarding bird-safe glazing. We had intended to link that with the NVCAP project review. However, that's been pushed back. So we have the choice of taking that report from you today, Board Member Chen, or doing it later. Which would you prefer?
Well, actually, I can report it today, and then we also have some extra links maybe could send to the staff, and then they can add it to the staff report for the future meetings.
Okay, so why don't we cover that at the end of our meeting, though, under board member input. We'll pick that up. Is there any other changes to our our agenda today or in the future?
None.
No, okay, thank you. City official reports. Claire, could you take us through that, please?
Yeah, so hold on 1 second. We have upcoming items include the fire station at 3600 Middlefield on September 21st. We also just added an item for our house. They've chosen to make some revisions to their design, so they've decided to come back to the board. So we will have that coming back on September 21st. And then hoping to come in with October 5th, 420 Acacia Avenue, which is a housing project. And again, the NVCAP study session was moved to October 19th. So those are upcoming items for the board. New items or new projects that were added. There was a request for a preliminary review for 616 Ramona that came in. And I believe that might have been the only new one that was added in the last week. So that's all.
Okay, so ready to move on? So the next item on our agenda is a study session. So we're gonna jump right into that then. This is a study session for 425 High Street, request for preliminary architecture review of a proposed 4th floor addition to an existing 3-story hotel, the Hotel Keene. The applicant proposes to add 2,632 square feet to the existing building, utilizing transferred development rights for either a new office use or 8 additional hotel guest rooms. Since this is a study session, there's no need to do disclosures. So we'll move right into the staff presentation on this top project.
Thank you. Claire Raybold, Senior Planner. So the project before you today is 425 High Street. As you noted, this is just a preliminary review of the application. Just a quick project location. It's located in our commercial downtown community. Surrounding uses include a religious institution to the south, a office use to the north. Across the street, across High Street, is a mixed use development that's PC. And then there's also the landmark Aquarius Theater to the rear of the site. So the applicant is looking to add a 4th story to the existing Hotel Keene that includes either 8 new guest rooms totaling 2,632 square feet extra floor area, or 2,632 square feet of office. And either way, they would be using transferred development rights that they are still in the process of obtaining. So once they obtain those transferred development rights, they would be coming back with their formal application. And no additional parking is currently proposed for the site with this addition. So some key considerations for the Architecture Review Board. We're really interested in getting your comments in general about materials, colors, neighborhood context. I wanted to highlight a few items that were highlighted in the staff report. One was the parking. So as I noted, the applicant isn't proposing any new car parking as part of the project. They have paid into the district for 48 parking spaces. Currently with their allowable, or with the floor area they have, 50 spaces would be required. And with the new project, it would bring it up to 60 spaces, I believe. So they would be underparked. So the question is whether they could do a parking reduction for the car parking. That's what they're interested in doing in order to allow for the hotel use. Under AB 2097, if they do an office use, additional car parking would not be required. We did note that there doesn't seem to be any bike parking in the area, and so we would expect them to work to come up into code with respect to bike parking, perhaps by adding some bike parking areas in front of the building or somewhere on the interior, if possible, on the ground floor. With respect to floor area, we did note that the floor area that was being calculated for the new 4th floor didn't seem to be calculated correctly. There were a few areas of the upper floor that do need to be counted toward floor area. So I expect that there would need to be some revisions to the design to accommodate that and to not exceed that what they're asking for, which brings them to the max 3.0 floor area. I also did note that with respect to trash, there didn't seem to be a trash enclosure shown on the ground floor, but the applicant had indicated that trash is provided on site and brought out to the street. So with the change, there could be additional bins that might be warranted, and especially with the addition of the office use, if they were looking to do that option, zero waste could require a whole separate room for the trash. So that could be a concern that needs some resolution as we move forward with a formal application. And just finish off with no formal action as requested. We're just looking for your feedback today. And following this preliminary review meeting, the applicant may choose to file a formal application. Thanks. And I know that the applicant is there to give a brief presentation as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire. Do we have any questions for staff before we move to the applicant? Go ahead.
So just to confirm that the proposed plans show the upper level, the new additional floor area being proposed as office space, but there's the potential, was that written somewhere that the potential is that that's a hotel, or just based on the fact that the rest of the building is a hotel?
There were discussions with the applicant because the plans have some inconsistencies throughout where it references hotel addition as well as office addition. They've expressed to staff that their real interest is doing a hotel addition, but they're still exploring their options. There was maybe some misunderstandings with the code of thinking the office may be an easier option for them, especially with AB 2097. If staff wasn't willing to work with them on the parking reduction. The applicant specifically had expressed that if they had to pay for the parking spots for the hotel use, it would make the project economically infeasible. So they're still kind of exploring their options with respect to both.
Perfect. Thank you for the explanation. And the FAR between an office space or a hotel would be the same at 3.0, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I've been trying to figure out.
Hold on 1 second, please. Go ahead, Board Member Hirsch.
Yeah, just hold on. I've been trying to figure out exactly what is happening on the rooftop. Is the areas that are public areas not part of either residential or offices? Is that open to the sky? Who do I ask that question?
Maybe Board
Is
Member.
that better for to ask the?
That's a question for the
Applicant?
applicant after he makes his presentation. We're looking for questions of staff regarding the permitting process, et cetera.
Yeah, okay, I can wait.
We'll get to that, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Board Member Chen, any questions?
No question for the staff.
Claire, could you walk us through, please, the process for transfer development rights? It seems a little bit vague here that they don't have those rights secured yet, but how does that work in Palo Alto?
Yeah, so let me bring up the code really quickly as I talk. Hold on 1 second. So you do have to secure the transferred development rights before you're allowed to get approval on a proposed project. I believe, hold on. I believe you don't have to, it's acceptable to have kind of identified them without actually purchasing them, like have an option in place that if the project is approved, you would be able to purchase. It's my recollection, so hold on 1 second.
Yeah, so it's 1880 is transfer development rights. And evidence of the development rights would need to be in place before we approve such a project.
So there's no real bearing on us from the architectural review process, whether or not they have these rights secured already.
Yeah, so it says evidence that the applicant owns the transferable development rights or a signed statement from any other owners of the TDRs that the specified amount of floor area is available for the proposed project and will be assigned for its use.
Okay, and once they've secured that, it's not a subjective approval process still to get those development rights. Is that correct? If they purchase these development rights, they're entitled to use them.
If they purchase them, then they still need approval to use them on that building.
But that approval is not a subjective thing that the architecture review board takes part in. Is that correct?
Do you mean is it your purview to decide whether they can use TDRs?
Yeah, I just want to be sure that's not something we have to decide on.
Yeah, I would say
No,
only.
that's not the ARB's purview. It is a pretty black and white
Okay, great.
code section
Yeah.
that if they purchase the TDRs, they are allowed to use them, up to the 3.0 FAR and, other restrictions that are in the code.
Great. Thanks for that, answering that question. Board Member Rosenberg has a question regarding the parking. Again, that if the applicant, as I understand it, if the applicant decides to put a hotel in there, they're required to have more parking, but they can apply for a parking reduction plan, right? And that's a subjective decision by the planning department. Is that right? How does that work for the parking, Claire?
Yeah, it would be a request for parking reduction under 1852 of our code, one of the allowances under that code section.
And there normally would be a TDM plan
plan.
that goes
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so Architect Carrasco, if you'd like to make a presentation, please. And if you could, please, I know you're well known in town, but state and spell your name for the record so they spell it correctly, and you'll have 10 minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, members of the board. Can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Tony Carrasco, 1885 El Camino in Palo Alto. We're the architects of the project and proposed 2,632 square feet. It's a little ambiguous about that number, but we'll get it before our final review. The first thing I wanted to talk about is the context, because the idea of a downtown with several heights based on policies rather than prescribed height limit is something that I've become accustomed to over the last 40 years of doing projects in the city. When I first came here, I thought everything should be the same height like Paris, but it turns out that the different policies create different heights in buildings. And so therefore our building is proposed as 4 stories because of the policies that come about and because it sits well in that place. We designed the building across the street, arbitrary, with 80 units an acre. It's 5 stories. The staff report says 4 stories.
4.
Yeah, it's 5 stories.
Yeah.
But generally, we thought that the top of these buildings should have a lot of landscaping, just as we did at Arbitrary. And so therefore, the main driver of this project was, how do you see it from University Avenue? What will it look like? Would just a building without landscaping look better, like most of the buildings? And we thought Arbitrary has landscaping on the top, and so we wanted to do the same. And we like it that way. Regarding parking, the project is in the parking assessment district. We pay for 48 parking spaces, and we use 7 a day. And that metrics is calculated by the number of parking passes that the hotel sells. And it rarely would exceed 7. Usually it's around 3 to 4. Most people drive or they take the bus or take the train or take Uber. Most people do that. So we don't need more parking. Let's see. I think the TDR issue, it would be great if we can get an approval before we buy TDRs, because TDRs is expensive. However, we will comply with the present regulation that says we need to get TDRs before we get the final approval. What else do I need to tell you? I think that's about it. The building will sort of conform with the existing footprint. The 8 hotel rooms, we prefer to do it as a hotel. It's dependent on what staff says about parking. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. If you could stay there, I believe Board Member Hirsch had some questions for you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm a little confused about the top floor in regards to what is roofed and what is not. especially because it seems that the planting that you have on is throughout the area of the circulation and in the front. So if it is in the back area of it, it wouldn't really be seen. But if in fact it's roofed over. But is that intended to be open, that area of circulation on the top floor, open to the sky?
Yes, David. Sorry, I didn't cover that. The idea is to build these sort of little cottages, if you will, but not really, but everything is open. You walk through an alley sort of open to the sky. We have trellises on top, but the trellises are just to grow plants on. But it's essentially open. It's more than 50% open to the sky.
So the kind of planting that you have would be kind of vines that would do a little cantilever over the open spaces?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yes. So there are two planters in the front section that carry these bougainvillea and
Okay,
jasmine that
bougainvillea,
would grow
yeah.
on top.
Okay, understood. And actually, there is a red colored bougainvillea. Is that the one?
Yeah, that's what we like, but red or white.
Could be other colors.
Could be other colors,
Mhm.
but bougainvillea is what we'd hope for.
Uh-huh, okay. So there's no problem with the use of the space when you're out in the open, in the corridor area, and you then enter a private, either private residential room or office room.
Right. It'll be open, maybe a little awning over the door, but that's about it. We want to make it feel like you're
Outside.
outside.
Mhm. And then rainwater, et cetera, when it rarely rains, but we do have the problem. That's all going to be collected then and drained below?
Yes, David. The way the structure is organized is that there's a parapet wall about 18 inches tall, and we're going to lay 3-foot glue lams or steel across from one parapet to the other. And so then there'll be an interstitial space under there which contains a lot of the mechanical stuff which we want to preserve. We don't want to redo that because it's cost effective and ecologically not great to do that. So we are going to build above the parapet wall. I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, it's just drainage through.
Oh,
so there's
drainage,
space.
Yeah, getting old here.
Me too.
So the water goes down into that interstitial space, which has a membrane on it.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So the water will perk down and then go out.
Distribute to vertical drain pipes.
Yes, the existing drain pipes.
Uh-huh. I think that's it. Just one other thing while I'm at it here, and that is, we've looked at the front elevation. The side elevations really don't indicate anything about material, but are you going to carry the same change in color of the stucco portions of the facade onto the side walls of the building?
Yes, the existing color is sort of a ochre beige, and so we're going to continue that color up. And the front two walls are dark gray right now.
Mhm.
We're going to paint those the same as the sides.
Mm-hmm. Okay, for the moment, that's good. Thanks.
Anyone else with the question for the applicant? Board Member Chen, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of questions. So on the elevations, you just mentioned there is certain height live for the existing mechanical. So for the on the elevations, you're showing the glazing part. Will there be spandrel glass for that portion?
For the interstitial space?
Yeah, on the
No,
front.
it's covered. It's continuous. There's no spandrel glass there.
Okay, because on
you
the
can-
front elevations, it's showing the glazing.
That's existing glazing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there is like a horizontal, it seems like it's the molding, or I'm not sure, it's just the divider separating the,
Oh, that's the top part is a frame,
okay,
but all of that is existing glass.
okay. Okay, and it seems like there is some design features for above the elevator towers. Could you please explain the design intent for that?
Yes, thank you for asking that. When we took the elevator tower straight up as a square, it looked too clunky. It didn't touch the sky well. And so we bent the corners up just like the World Trade Center building, the same geometry, but much smaller, obviously. And so it's chamfered at the corners to build a rectangle. It shows up in plan, but it's not very clear in the elevation.
So will there be like any lightings around the elevator?
There's no lighting other than
Okay.
on the front columns,
Okay.
which is existing.
Okay, just want to make sure. And also, I'm still on the front elevations. It seems like there is a big tree logo. I want to know what's the
Yeah.
material of it, and is it just flat, or there is some three-dimensional things?
So we wanted to hire an artist to do that, and it's really a placeholder for a mural that'll grow up, have a tree-like shape on that facade, and we'll bring that to you in the final. It's not that image. We're not going to put an oak tree on there.
Thanks. And for the trellis on the top of the the top floor, is there any extra protection layers during the raining days, or is it just always semi-open?
It's all open. I didn't understand the question. Is there anything covered?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's just the open corridor on the upper floor, right? So during the raining days, is there any extra protections, or it just,
No, it's open.
okay,
We want to make it feel like an alley. In fact, we're thinking about graffiti and so on those walls.
I see. All right, thank you. That's all my question for now. Thank you.
Board Member Rosenberg, any questions? Okay,
None at this time.
I have quite a few questions, so if I could just jump in then. Architect Carrasco, on the front left side of the elevation, I see a projection
Yes.
for the stair, it looks like, to get up to the upper roof.
Yes.
Can you explain why that's necessary?
Yes, Peter, because of that interstitial space, which is about 3.5 feet, maybe 4 feet deep for the mechanical stuff, the stair length gets a little longer than the normal stair length. And so we had to project it out. This is the only place we could do it to get up there.
Were there any other options to not have it project out, some work the stair in some other direction?
Yeah, we tried looking at all kinds of ways to get up there, not projected, but we thought this projection would not be too crazy.
Okay, thank you. On the, let's see, it must be the west side, the right side of the building, where you're fronting next to the church structure.
Yes.
You have a series of what I call light shafts on the current building, which are open to the sky, which let windows receive natural light.
Yes.
But it looks to me like the new building projects on top of those. Have you really studied how does light get into those light shafts with the new building on top?
So the building next door is about 28 feet high. And so there's light that comes in over that building.
Right.
And into these shafts.
And if that building were to be redeveloped to a higher limit, there would be no restriction on them blocking off those light shafts altogether, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. However, we try to purchased that building, and it's a church, and so has not paid into the parking assessment district, and so they cannot add any more, at least with present regulations. I don't see those changing, actually.
Okay, thank you. Could you explain how trash will be handled on this building and how bicycle parking would be handled?
The bicycle parking, it's almost fully developed on the site, except for one corridor on the north side. There's some space for bicycle parking, but it's pretty much used up. I mean, there may be some space. I cannot commit to it now, but we'll look at that because we're very much into the bicycle side of life.
I believe staff is going to require some amount of bicycle parking. I'm asking if you can explain where you're going to put that.
This is the first I've heard about bicycle parking. We think it's an important issue. We'll look for a place and put it. I don't think we'll get more than a couple, but even that's important.
And then how is trash currently handled?
There's a trash bin under the front stair, under the landing. And so that's pretty much used and never seems to get full.
And on collection days, it's just brought out to the curb through the front door of the hotel?
No, through the gate on the left-hand side of it.
Okay.
Under that projection that you were speaking about, Peter, there's a door and a trash bin right on the right-hand side.
So you have room on the left side to store a trash bin?
Yes.
Great, okay, thank you. The color, right now it's a sort of a gray color on the street. Why are you changing that to a tan color?
So this comes from the owner, and a lot of residents said they cannot find the building, and they think it's because of the dark color. We can go along with it.
If I understand correctly, you are the architect of the original building that's there, is that right?
Yes.
Yes, I find it fairly
Not
handsome.
the original building, the remodel building.
The hotel that's there right now has
Yes.
got your hand on it.
Yeah.
And I find it quite attractive
Thank you.
as it is. So I'm wondering why you're changing it. But what I'm hearing you say is that the owner was requesting a different color.
Yes.
Okay. And there's no material boards or color samples with us now, aside from a paint chip on the packet. Is that right?
That's correct. There's no materials board, but the materials are called out on the third to last sheet.
Thank you. So my last two questions are going to be more with staff, but as I understand it, on the fourth floor, the floor area calculations would require not only the useful space that what's inside the rooms up there, but also the minimum requirement for circulation, which would be on the upper corridor there. Typically, that's done when you have a solid roof over the whole space. You take the minimum, typically a 3-foot hallway linking all these spaces, and include that space. Would that be the case, though, if it's just a trellis? If it's more than 50% open upstairs, are they still required to include that circulation corridor, the minimum required circulation, if it's not covered whatsoever?
Yeah, it's something I want to discuss a little bit more internally for the formal application, but as you'll note in the staff report, I did list the language from the code, and it does indicate that whether open or, let me get the exact language. Hold on one second.
Yeah, open or roofed porches, patios, balconies, breezeways, if located above the ground floor and used for required access. So above the ground floor, used for required access, it doesn't matter if it's roofed or not, does count towards FAR, toward gross floor area.
Okay, well, that sounds very clear. It will be an impact to the design because they'll have to accommodate for that. And it seems pretty clear to me they're trying to leave it open in part for that reason. But I just wanted to put it out there so you can hear that. The second question really has to do with the use of this building. Is it an office or is it a hotel? It looks to me, it smells to me, the floor plan is a hotel.
Yes,
Is that your desire?
that's the desire.
So why are you showing it as an office building?
There's
Why is
a
it labeled
confusion,
that
as Claire mentioned earlier. We thought that a hotel could only go to 2-to-1 FAR, and an office can go to 3-to-1 FAR. But it turns out, Claire clarified this, that with TDRs, a hotel can go to a 3-to-1 FAR. And so if there's no additional parking requirement, we want it as a hotel.
And Jody, what were you
Yeah,
like?
there is an additional parking requirement though for hotel use, because that's not covered by the state law.
Okay. And they are able to apply for a parking management plan. However, that staff could then determine the current parking is adequate for the new hotel use, even if it's larger.
Yes, we could also look at a TDM plan and look at a reduction that way.
So hypothetically speaking, do you think staff would be inclined to approve that kind of request?
I don't, I'm assuming, Claire, they're fully parked at this point, right? And so we're talking about a handful of spaces that would need to be reduction. I don't know what the percentage is.
Yeah. So I think it could be feasible based on the discussions I've had with the applicant about what's already available on the site and based on the information about what their use is. Use being the actual use of the facilities right now and the fact that they are tracking it. I was just trying to double check the reduction. Hold on one second. It's a I want to say that it's a 60 divided by 8. I'm trying to remember what the reduction is percentage wise, but I think I worked out that it could be feasible
Okay.
with a TDM plan based on the location.
Yeah, so the applicant's saying 20% reduction would be the request.
No, not the request, the allowed.
Right.
Allowed. is 20.
Allowed. Yeah.
Yes, allowed is 20%. Do you
Yeah.
know what would be requested, what the percentage would be?
Probably less than 20.
Okay. So yes, I mean, if it's less than 20%, and they were to buy, train passes for employees and offer, some sort of subsidy for hotel guests. We've had other hotels that, have given like $20 towards an Uber ride or, something to that effect. So if those things were in place, then I would think that it's likely to be approved, but not exactly planning's purview. We do need to discuss that with Office of Transportation.
I think it's exactly 20%. I just calculated it out.
Oh, is that right?
Okay, well, thank you for the responses to those questions. Board Member Rosenberg, a question.
Thank you. So this question's actually for staff. When they do need to count that 3-foot wide corridor on the roof level, is that going is this a straight line down the middle? Is this going
Yes.
from staircase to elevator to staircase and then dipping in for each entry door? We want to just make sure that the client and the applicant have an accurate way to count that.
Yeah, it's whatever the required access is, based on more the building code.
Sure. But does
And-
that go from each room individually or is it just sort of straight down the middle?
It does need to get to each room, yes.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. And then question for the applicant really quickly. I noticed that on the roof plan and on the 3D elevations, it looks like you've got a varying pitch of these parapet walls. On your roof plan, it shows all the flat roofs are at 45 feet. Is it just the parapets that are going to get taller and
Yes,
shorter for the
correct.
visual?
No, there's a mechanical space above the bathrooms.
Got it.
And so those roofs will be a little lower.
A little lower.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, perfect. That was it. Thank you.
Okay, why don't we ask the applicant to sit down and open this meeting to public comment? Do we have any members of the public who wish to address us on this?
I don't see any raised hands. We have one public attendee in Zoom, and I haven't received any speaker cards.
So to the member of the public who's listening to us, now is the time to say your piece. Hearing no requests, we'll close the meeting to public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion. So this is a study session, so we're just going to offer our opinions to the applicant where we start. Board Member Hirsch, would you like to start us out?
Okay. We asked a lot of technical questions, some of which might not be really our purview. I don't know. We can ask, I guess, questions about parking, of course, but ultimately that becomes a planning issue with the transportation department, I think. But okay, so it's, I think the clarity in any case has been discussed. So I would like to just at first say that I think that the idea of changing the color, the gray color, is really more than just a wayfinding for the building. It makes this, by making it a lighter color, and actually the materials of the vertical elements in the middle are better defined by the lighter color. And I'm happy to see that. But a caution on that, since you don't show us final colors for that material, we generally like to see something that isn't so bright that it kind of becomes too evident on the street, and doesn't fit in because it's so bright. So we need a board. We need some boards to describe, to really show us the relationship between the colors that are on the front. We haven't talked style here, but it's kind of a postmodern look to this building now that it's extended up a full floor. And by the way, concerning the raising of the part of the staircase, I think that benefits the top of the building quite a lot as you're showing it here. And I did notice that the building across the street is 5 stories. And, in regards to kind of establishing heights of buildings, in the first place, we're under pressure now to create more dense housing in the whole city. And I think that's going to change the skyline, maybe not the way it was whenever the City Hall was built, but, ever since the City Hall went up, and I think the residents of this city decided that they wanted to restrict the height. Well, that's going to have to change a bit. But so the idea of there being a variation in height on this block, and even in particular, I don't find it to be a problem whatsoever. And in particular, if you look at the whole block, I would recommend that you do a little better job of showing the neighboring streets here, that you kind of cut them off in those elevations, and it would be better to see an exact height of the neighboring buildings across the street, particularly where there's that 5-story element, really very much across the street from this building. And then, of course, there's office buildings on the corner, one of which is, I think, significantly taller than other buildings, and certainly much more massive. So I don't have any problem with the massing change. In fact, I think elevation is quite interesting to begin with, and therefore extending it up is going to be a kind of really a very pleasant idea. The fact that it's an open rooftop area like that, you have to kind of get a little bit used to the concept of that. I think it might be nice to come up and sort of be under the sky again to some extent, and to have the color of the whatever it gets to be, the planting above it. And that it gets to the edge, in the front, and that you'll see it, I think, at least by looking up, you'll see it through the structure. So that should be quite an interesting space up there. And I guess that would, intention is that in the front of the building, that'll be used publicly as a gathering space of some sort. Almost feel like it ought to have a cafe or something up there, at the same time. That's projecting. That's it's not really necessary, but in any case, so I would think it would be furnished in some way and useful, although the furniture has to be protected from the weather. So, so we do need color.
Are you all right?
Oh.
You okay?
Everything okay? You okay? Yeah, good. Okay. And as you paint it, I guess it's monolithic. It doesn't really have any joints in that material. I did not express joints in any case, the side panels or the side of the building. It's all kind of monolithic. I don't remember seeing any joint lines. So sometimes we like to see the scale of, and it becomes important to see the scale of the division of a stucco wall, if it's a stucco wall. But I can't actually remember what I saw. In terms of bike parking and garbage, you'll have to show something for us that's clearer than what is shown up to date now. You might have to give up some other public spaces in order to make some of that work with proper garbage collection. And if it works, then you're demonstrating how it works, is a good idea. Actually, demonstrating the actual garbage storage in those spaces within the building. And then if it's brought out to the street the way kind of residentially it's brought out, in resident areas. And the bike parking, then I think is you really need to sort of demonstrate where it is. So to be honest, I can see the reason for sort of a sketchiness to this presentation is that you've got to clarify the big picture first. Can you build it? And then you do a greater detail. So I certainly can understand it from that point of view. I just because aesthetics haven't been mentioned at all, I just think it's the original building. You're continuing the idea of the original building, and I find that the rooftop elements are going to add significantly to that and almost finish off the top of the building in some way, which wasn't quite done as well in the way it's presented right now. So you have an opportunity to do it twice, which is good. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Board Member Hirsch. Board Member Rosenberg.
I wanted to thank you for your presentation today. I'm quite fond of this building, and I also would like to say I'm very pleased to see you guys renovating and, expanding something that's existing, and it's a notable piece of architecture here, rather than tearing it down and starting over. That's always, something that we would like to see done a little bit more of whenever possible. In terms of the FAR, I'm obviously you guys will need to comply and you'll need to figure out how to get that done. And the question would be, is it worth covering the walkways in just those zones if you have to? Now, I see you shaking your head. I do love the open air concept. I really do. The one advice I would say, if I could give some, just making sure that there's rain protection at the doorways, right? Something as simple as that. And I know you probably have that in your pocket that you're going to be showing us at the next meeting. But I do think that this open air concept is gorgeous. We live in California. We've got great weather most of the time. If they know a storm's coming in, maybe they can book people in the lower rooms, right? Something as simple as that. So I really like the concept of it. I like how airy and light and bright it is. My few items of concern would be that I do think this elevator shaft is very tall. And while I appreciate the chamfering element of it, I'm just wondering if there's a better solution to how tall it is. And I understand that the project across the street is 5 stories, but just visually, I'm having a hard time with that element being so much taller than the rest of the building. Sort of part 2 of that is it's the only element that has that chamfer. And I like the chamfer. So I kind of am wondering if there's another spot to pick that up again. Maybe it's at the top of the staircase. Maybe it's some element with the mural, right? You were talking about a mural. Maybe there's some language in the geometry of the mural that can pick that up again. So just having that be lonely makes me a little bit sad. So I'd like to see just that language brought back somewhere else in the design. Let's see, what else do I have? I do want to comment that I really appreciated David's thoughts on having a rooftop loungy area. Maybe there's some outdoor seating, fire pits, maybe not under a trellis per se, but something up there that could really provide a gathering space and more of a communal meeting space for the hotel guests. I think that would really be lovely. As far as the color, I admit that I am very partial to that gray color, but that's my own personal preference and aesthetics. So I think that the new color that's being proposed is nice. I'd love to see the sample boards for it. I'm a little concerned about the darkness of the olive color on the side. Again, when we're talking about the fact that those side elements are going to be kind of shaded to begin with, I would just, want to see that in a little bit more detail of how dark that olive color is and whether it's the right color choice for it. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other until I see it, but I would just caution that maybe we don't want to go too dark in the shaded areas. Other than that, thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Board Member Chen.
Thanks again for your presentation. I think the addition project is quite interesting, and I think it's quite well sorted because it's hard to see. It's blended in so well with the original building, and it's hard to see it's an addition. And I do appreciate the concept that you say it's an alley and like the cottages settle down on each side of the alley. I do like this concept, but I would suggest you to consider have some cover during above the corridors during just thinking about the rainy days, because we need to have some protections. Since we add the rooms on top, we want it to be in use instead of just say we can only use it in summer times or in good weathers. So that is only my concern. And speaking of wayfinding, I think the light colors helps, and also the rooftop trellis with the planting also helps people to find the hotels easier. So I think these are all the good features for the addition. That's all my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Chen. I agree with what my colleagues have said. I think this is a wonderful project. I'd love to see the additional height. I think, as you pointed out, Architect Carrasco, it's good in the town. It's interesting. It's nice to have taller buildings in places. This is a good place for it. I really like the idea of the open air terrace lounge up there. It's going to bring vitality and life. It adds a lot of interest. So I can support all of that very comfortably and encourage you to proceed with that. I think you really do need to show how bicycle parking and trash, just mundane elements, need to be resolved, as well as more details on the color and materials and stuff like that. But I can support the direction this is going very comfortably, and I'm confident you can work it out. I think it's up to staff to figure out how to deal with the FAR, transfer development rights and whatnot. Again, we can support your project. I'd like to see you go forward. We'll work with whatever capacity we need to. There's 2 elements that I'm concerned and I'd like to see change, at least if the board can support me on it. One is, as I look at the projecting stair tower on the left up front, I think there must be some other way to structure that staircase that doesn't require it projecting out. I'm concerned that when we look at that 3-dimensionally from Lytton Avenue, I think it's going to look very odd to have this fairly large piece projecting off the side of what's otherwise a fairly clean and well-defined facade. And I think it's worth at least another effort to find a way to get that stair to function. If not, at least prepare some renderings and convince me, if not all of us, that it's okay. Right now, I'm uncomfortable with it the way it's designed, and I think that could be changed. Secondly, I think that the bedrooms on the right facade, southwest facade, are really going to become even darker than they are now. And I'm concerned that by bringing the new building completely over the top of that, you close off even more light. And I'm not sure I think that's a good idea, to really restrict the amount of light and air that gets down to those bedrooms, especially down on the lower floors. And if that adjacent building were ever to be redeveloped, you'd really have a problem there. So for those reasons, I think you should just find some way to adjust the floor plan up above to get more light into there. So those are my two concerns with what's otherwise, I think, a very good project. Those are my comments. I'd like as a board for us to at least address the question of how we all feel about those two issues, just so the applicant has clear direction, whether it's me or everybody. Anybody have any comments about that?
I would agree with both of those statements. I think that the stair mass is rather imposing and, you know, I'm not sure if it's a geometry change or material change, but I would love a second look at that to some extent. And then as well with the lighting on that side, that southeast side is going to be pretty important on that area. And while we understand that there's no intent to build up that building on the side in the future, imminent future, we don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. So we'd rather just plan ahead and make sure that lighting is definitely thought through. Now, it looks like there'll probably need to be some rework on that upper floor because of the FAR ratio anyway. So just keeping that in mind as the redesign occurs, I would support that.
Well, I'm spending a little more time trying to think about what happens on the left there. You know, when you look at a straight elevation, in the first place, you should look at it sort of from street side so that the top, if I understand this correctly, there's a setback wall, which is the other run of the stair on the top floor on the left. Could you clarify that a little bit? Because this actually is important since there's comments on it.
Quite catch that, David. And while David's looking at that, if I can address Peter's comment.
Go ahead, please do.
I didn't, could you repeat that question, David?
Well, yes, you know, from the straight elevation on the front of the page here,
Yes.
and the tree kind of cuts off that extension
Right.
on the left, but it does show up again and later on in the elevation. The real, the actual, you know, defining elevation. So, but on the rooftop, what we're looking at here is separate planes that set back. In other words, the setback on the left-hand side of the front elevation here. That's a line that runs across there. So we're looking at a wall that's set back. Is that correct?
From the property line?
Yeah, from the front property line.
It's set back about 6 inches.
Only 6 inches.
Yeah, that's the existing setback. I don't think I'm understanding the question, David.
Okay, so above the tree image on the side wall of the front wall of the building,
Yes,
and then you go up to the parapet line for the front of the staircase.
yes,
There's a line that runs all the way across.
yes.
Okay, and then there's the wall behind it, which is,
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's
Okay.
way back. That's the rooms behind.
Okay, that's the
Those are the
rooms
rooms
behind it.
behind. Yeah, I'll
Okay.
change
Okay.
that.
So there we go. Okay, it was
Yeah.
just clarified to me by looking at the axonometric. Okay, I didn't
Can
spend
I
enough.
just answer one question that David about this
Sure,
light?
go ahead, go ahead.
The light that comes down into the lower, light wells. Unfortunately, we have to run a beam on the exterior side of those jogs. We have to run a beam on top for shear. And that's the limitation that we have, that we can't move that beam in. I would have loved to have brought more light in there, but
You probably could head it out, have a pair of beams at each side of the light shaft and then step the floor back between the two. That's a common framing technique. But let's hear from, if Board Member Hirsch is finished regarding these two issues, Board Member Chen. I'm just trying to
I'm
give you
not.
clear feedback from all of us.
Yeah, I'm not really
Oh,
finished.
I'm sorry, then go ahead.
Because I'm still confused. The reason why you're putting in an entirely new stair in order to get to the top? What's the reason for that?
no, we're just adding to the existing stair.
Adding to the existing stair.
On the front side, the front stair?
Yeah,
Yeah, the front stair is just extended up with a longer run
on the top floor only?
on the top floor only.
Okay. You know, I mean, but it is shown with a cantilever to the left side of the building.
Yeah,
Most of the way down into the floor below. So does the stair actually extend?
the height, because of that interstitial space, the mechanical space that we want to preserve,
I see.
the run gets longer.
It gets,
The run gets longer because you have to go up a little higher than the normal stair.
okay. Well, you know, I
But
mean,
we look at
frankly,
that.
you know, if you go back to the elevation, you know, of this, that is, what page is it? The regular elevation. It shows the cantilever. I'm just focusing on this because personally, I think it relates nicely. The actual extension of the stair on the left. If you kind of look at it relative to the asymmetry of the open area above.
Right.
Comes up and then there's a sort of a notch to the left. So the stair extending to that side kind of is a balancing act in the facade. To me, it relates nicely, if you know.
Okay, well, that's the point of the question, is to
That-
let
the
him have
point
the
is that-
feedback from everybody on this issue.
Yes, I have less problem.
Perfect.
With the
That's-
extension of the
that's what
stair.
That's what I wanted to hear, your
Okay.
opinion on that. And do you have an opinion about the light shafts on the other side of the building? Or closing off of those light shafts?
It's a problem that has to do with perhaps a future that won't happen as described to us. There is a kind of a limitation in the height of that building on that side. So it seems to me that we can hope for the best. In any case, if it went up, there would still be open area.
No, I don't think so.
It's about a foot.
There's some open area. There is some open
It
area.
wouldn't be sufficient for safety egress, though. I mean, you have to have,
Oh, no, we're talking
Life
now
safety.
about not egress because that
Yeah.
side, there is no egress.
well, those windows serve as egress.
No, they don't. They're not egress windows. The egress is just through the corridor and they're fixed glass.
Okay,
Those are existing fixed glass windows.
can we let Board Member Chen?
I'm willing to take a chance on
Okay.
that side, the
Okay.
other side.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's good for him to hear everybody's thoughts on it. Board Member Chen, do you have?
Yeah, so first, speaking of the stairs, actually, I agree with David. I don't have too much, I don't think it's that offensive for that big cantilever thing happen there, because there is a reason. And also, we see lots of good buildings on the world that has cantilevered boxes over there. But I do agree that if we only leave the side blank, it seems like it's quite a big blank wall. So I would suggest to have something happen there, maybe to work with some artists to put something there. And speaking of the light shaft, yes, I agree. I also have the concern with that part, but since they will work with to redo the floor area on the top floor, so the floor area on the floor layout could be changed and make the light shaft work.
We've got a structural engineer who says he wants the beam on the exterior wall.
Right, yeah.
But I think what Peter's saying is offset it in some portions. And so-
Right.
What I'm trying to do is give you clear feedback from all of us on two issues that I see. I've heard sort of a mixed on both of them, so you can interpret that as you like. We want to help your project go forward, and so we want to give you clear feedback. Do you have any other questions, Architect Carrasco, or thoughts given what we've said, so we can close this out otherwise?
I don't have.
Are we
any.
giving you clear feedback?
Pretty clear. It'd be great if I can meet with you guys. I'm not sure how that works.
I think you should reach out to staff, and if it seems appropriate, we will be more than happy to meet with you. But let's go through staff on that, please.
Thanks.
Any other closing thoughts, folks? Okay, thank you very much. We're going to finish this item. Next item on our agenda is approval of minutes from August 3rd. So assuming everyone has read those carefully, do we have a motion, please?
No, I have a comment.
A comment, go ahead.
I would like, and it becomes important. We really had a lot of comments on this project. And I understand it's coming back to us soon. So what concerned me is that, let me see, I have it here in my writing, that on page 10 of 16, I was very concerned with, and the minutes don't seem to repeat what the idea that I expressed. So I would like it to read version it says a private on that page about the 10th or 12th paragraph down. It starts off particularly in the exercise room. So to repeat, I would add to that, to repeat the clear story windows and the use of the same facade material as used on the front of the building, front facade.
David, we need to identify where in this massive
Yeah,
text you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm having trouble finding it. I'm sorry.
Significant change in the elevation treatment on that paragraph.
So you're talking the upper paragraph of the page.
Mhm.
How many lines down? Can you just count them down?
1,
please?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13.
So the 13th line down starts with building could be vastly improved. Is that right?
Improvement if they were to work on that.
If they were to work on that.
Right.
So what change or what addition?
And then
do you
I'd
suggest?
add to that to repeat the clear story windows, relocate the rooftop mechanical, and use the same facade material as used on the front facade.
So what you're saying is that's what you actually said.
Yes, that's what I actually said in the meeting. So since we're not doing word for word meetings there, I would say,
Well, it's
I'll
important.
repeat that again.
Yeah, it's important that the minutes actually capture what you said.
Yeah. To repeat the clear story windows and the use of the same facade, relocate the rooftop mechanical, and use the same facade material as used on the front facade.
So you're believing the second building could be vastly improved if they would work on that, period.
Mhm.
At that point, you'd like to insert a sentence that says, Board Member Hirsch suggested they relocate the mechanical equipment to the roof.
Yes.
And Claire's staff, do we have that? You capturing what we're saying here?
Yeah, so what I have is after the sentence, the building could be vastly improved if they would work on that, adding if they, okay, instead of they would work on that, to say if they would repeat the clear story windows, relocate the rooftop mechanical, and use the same facade material as used on the front facade.
Let's just add it as a sentence. Board Member Hirsch stated that or requested that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, that be emphasized or something like
So why
that.
don't you say it very clearly so she can spell it out so we
Yeah.
have it, because we're going to put this in the record then.
Yes, not only should we put it in the record, but it should be sent to the sent to the applicant very
So,
soon. Because
Sorry, just to be clear, that project has already been noticed and is coming back to you in the next revision. My recollection is that they have made changes to the clear story as well as the equipment. I can't recall off the top of my head if they changed the material or not, but those plans have already been revised and they're
Okay.
already
That's
coming
not
back.
really relevant. We're just trying to get the
Yeah.
record straight.
Sure.
It should say, we'd like to add a sentence that says, Board Member Hirsch requested that the applicant, Board Member Hirsch requested that the applicant relocate mechanical equipment to the rooftop. Is that right, David?
Mhm.
What's the second thing you did?
provide clear story windows, the perimeter of the.
Okay, provide clear story
The
windows
perimeter of the
at the perimeter,
exercise room.
at the perimeter of the exercise room.
And revise the facade materials. Just want to bring to your attention, fellow board members.
And revise the facade materials.
Materials, yeah.
Period.
Mhm.
So let's make sure we get this sentence. Claire, do you have this captured, this sentence?
I think she did.
Let's get her to read it back to us so you can be sure you have it right.
Board Member Hirsch requested that the applicant relocate mechanical equipment to the rooftop, provide clear story windows at the perimeter of the exercise room, and revise the facade materials
To match the front
to
facade.
match the front facade. Yeah.
Okay, I do believe I recall hearing him say those things, so I can second this motion to amend the minutes.
Right.
Do you want to add something to that, David? I cut you off. You were about to say something else.
No, that's fine.
This covers your, this covers your
To
recollection.
me, that's the most important thing to be
Okay,
done.
do we have any other thoughts from any other board members or Dave regarding the minutes for this minute?
While
No.
we're here, there's one other typo on page 4 of 16.
Page 4 of 16.
Very top, it says city staff. Page 4 of 16, packet page number 29.
Okay,
It's just a typo.
where is this? Oh,
Yeah, packet page 29, city staff.
the staff is misspelled.
Yes, that's it.
Very important. We got to get this right.
Okay. So, just
Figure while we're
So we
here.
can add that to the motion as well. Please correct
Okay.
the spelling of the word staff
There
at
you
the
go.
top of page
Thank you.
16. That's not so funny. It's not funny. It has to be correct. This is public record.
Okay.
There's nothing joking about this.
Okay.
Anything else? Board Member Chen, surely you found something. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Yeah, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Chen,
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rosenberg,
Yes,
Chair Baltai.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, everyone, for your diligence on the minutes. It is very important. Next item is board member questions, comments, announcements. We're going to have the discussion about bird-safe glazing. Before that, I would like to bring to my colleagues' attention that I attended a city council meeting on Tuesday night where I presented to council the results of our discussions regarding the what's it called? The Portage Avenue Fry's site. There's quite a few members of the public there. Almost everyone spoke in some form or another of preserving the existing cannery building. It was very clear to present our findings and then the two comments we'd made about historic reuse of the building and about additional density or development types of housing. So I just want everybody to know that we were represented at that meeting. Okay, with that.
Thank you, Chair, for doing that for us.
Thank you. With that, Board Member Chen, you were going to bring back to us the results of work you and former Board Member Thompson did regarding bird-safe glazing. So why don't we dive into that?
Sure, let me find my notes. So first, I'd like to thank you, staff, Claire, to sending us some additional links for us to look at, like the San Francisco bird safety building code and also Portland building code. We did look at that, and also we did additional research on the website for like the lead requirement for bird safety, and also there is a study that is done by let's see, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and also we also look at the website. I'm sorry. We also look at the website of the American Bird Conservancy, and they also provide the materials, the product listing, and rate the threatening factors to the birds. So we concluded that when we read more about it, we find we need to consider more than just the UV coated glass, and we will suggest the applicants to follow the LEED requirement, because they also talking about the hazard zone, like they separated by height, because like from grade to 40 feet above the grade, it's more like where the canopies happen. So it's more easier for the birds to fly into the glasses. And also, so there are 4 items that we think that would affect the bird's safety. First is the material choice. So we would like the applicants to see the threat factors in the American Bird Conservancies. There is a list of that. It's not only for happen to the glass, but also say like the polished steel. It could also be a threat to the bird. And also another second item is the placement and adjacency. So we would request the applicant to minimize the clear glass adjacent to the landscape or reflective surfaces, and consider maybe using the angled glass. And also the louvers or shadings or like extra screening would also help. And third item is landscape. So we suggest to do not funnel the birds towards the glass, like the interior atrium. If there is interior landscaping with the clear glass on top, it's also a danger to the birds. And also sometimes we have the rooftop garden. So if there's large glazing areas near the roof garden where it's heavy landscaped, it's also could be a potential hazard to the birds. The fourth item is the light pollution. Because during the night, if there's say like the uplight or the beacon lighting, it will impact the birds to finding their way, especially during the migration period. Because the birds rely on the stars and moons to finding their way. And last but not least, we are thinking about the historic buildings in town, because we think it should treat it differently. And maybe we should work with the Historic Resources Board and consider alternatives when the other strategies doesn't work for historic buildings. So that's it.
Thank you. That's a lot of stuff. Did you find any place, an existing standard regarding bird-safe glazing for buildings, something like a code or something somebody's researched already that exists?
Well, yeah. As I mentioned, Claire sent us the link of the San Francisco bird safety building code.
So San Francisco has a bird-safe glazing building code,
Yeah, and also Portland.
and Portland, Oregon has one.
And also, since lead requirement also has potential points for the specifically for the birds friendly design, so that is also something good to refer to.
Yeah, there's no real set standard, but I think the idea was what can we look to possibly to see if we want to include something in our NVCap to set a standard, I suppose. So I think that's very helpful. Thank you.
As I look at some of these standards, it seems to me that they're going to be in some level or another in contradiction with other design objectives. Things like not having glazing near landscaping sort of flies in the face of having a window and a view. Is there any, staff, do you know of any effort within the city to try to come up with a more comprehensive regulation for this? Our objective had been is to try to at least come up with something for the Architecture Review Board to have a clear guidance for applicants. As I look at this list of things you've uncovered, it seems to me pretty big to try to really do this. And I'm personally a little bit uncomfortable trying to just sort of write a code like this ourselves. Staff, can you comment on this? Is this a significant issue? Are other cities dealing with this to your knowledge? And do you think the city is interested in trying to regulate this more carefully?
So we don't currently have direction from council on this specific topic, but we have, had conversations with Audubon Society in the past. And based on that past conversation is when we started using kind of the San Francisco guidelines and bringing that to the attention of applicants and incorporating that into our projects where we could. We're hearing that the San Francisco guidelines are maybe a little bit out of date at this point. We were directed maybe at Cupertino, but at my quick glance at Cupertino guidelines, I didn't see a whole lot of detail that was helpful. But there's definitely at least a handful of other cities that have already tackled this. And so that might be, that would be the easiest way to go, is to just find another city that we think has some reasonable standards that we could look to. Also, we could have another conversation with the Audubon Society too and see what they would say.
And I would just add that I think the answer to that, Chair Balte, is a little bit nuanced, because I think that it could be a bigger concern in certain areas, or as Board Member Chen noted, once you get to taller buildings over 40 feet, it becomes a little bit slightly more concerning. So certainly areas in the Baylands, we're looking and paying more attention to that. And it's definitely come up as an issue, especially when, office buildings are looking at designs that have a substantial amount of glass. So I think it really comes down to kind of what's being proposed, where it's being proposed, as to how significant the concern is. I do think that in NVCap area, it's not quite as tall of buildings for most of the buildings. And a lot of them are not going to be, big window office buildings. But we still wanted to kind of explore whether we should be including something. I think our comprehensive plan does have a policy that's encouraging us to come up with bird safe guidelines. And so it kind of came up as part of this NVCap, but it's something I think we are thinking we could explore a little bit further to potentially incorporate into the objective standards in the future to address that direction from our comprehensive plan.
So you're thinking this is linkable as a comprehensive plan item. The comprehensive plan requests that the city come up with some sort of bird safe standards, I believe. I'm looking at it from our finding number 6 is regarding sustainability. And to me, this is a sustainability issue in that it affects how our buildings interact with the broader environment. Is it something that we want to, as a board, consider perhaps either issuing some sort of a statement for applicants or suggesting to council that we modify one of our findings to be more explicit about this issue? Is there any traction for that kind of thing? I'm guessing staff is not ready to pick up this as a full project.
That seems to me to
But
be
it seems to
clear
me
as
that
well.
As a board, we could
And-
certainly issue. Go ahead,
yeah.
David.
Yeah, no, I think that Jody put the proper suggestion before was that there are other places that have been working on this and that we should really do the research to find out if some of the regulations are already kind of incorporated into some other regulations of other cities that are around. And there is the woman who spoke to us, Shani Kleinhaus, who seems to be a representative of the Audubon Society. So I would think it makes sense to include her into some of the discussions because I think she's been going into this in some depth. And she was here with us on one project already, and so it'd be a good idea to, if you have comments, the comments that you've made, you can see, maybe could be forwarded to her and say, we'd like your comment on these possible regulations. And but it seems to me that the best idea would be not to tie us up for our board in too much more detail than what's already been presented here, and try to find other regulations from other cities that would work to our benefit or to the city's benefit here, and make it a little bit easier to deal with that. That's my opinion, anyhow.
Yeah, that's good. I've heard information from board member Chen and Thompson through her that has been informative to me. It's interesting to learn more about bird safe glazing. I never thought about highly reflective materials and the fact that as you get higher, it becomes more important. So it's good for us to be educated that way. I think we've accomplished that goal. Another goal might be to try to put out some sort of standard so we communicate with applicants who come before us that they understand, A, that we think this is serious, and B, where our positions are. Now, we don't have a regulation we can reference somebody, and I don't think it's likely that we're going to get any formal process made on that. Maybe a question to ask my colleagues, though, is do we even feel that do we need to do that? Is this an item that stands above everything else that we should be issuing some sort of a statement or a white paper? We take bird safe glazing important and we suggest applicants consider the following items, something like that. There's nothing preventing us from releasing that and asking staff to give that to applicants. Is this an item that rises above everything else that we don't do this for?
It becomes a kind of a precedent if we're going to start giving regulations out from us too.
That's exactly why I'm trying to ask that question, because if we want to do that, we have to be careful about it and be united behind it. So I'll start out. I, for one, don't think this is sufficiently important to warrant explicit instructions. To me, this is one of many items that we deal with that are more broadly encompassed with findings regarding the comprehensive plan and sustainability. And I think there's enough information out there for other applicants. But I'm just one member of the board. What does the rest of us think? Board member Chen.
Yeah, agree. It's, as we read more, we find out there are lots of things we don't know. So it's beyond the architect's knowledge. But in our standards, I think instead of just saying bird safety glazing requirement, we need to change it to bird safety or bird friendly strategies instead of just glazing.
Okay, that's a good point. Where does it say that in our standards? In the
Oh no, I
objective
mean,
standards?
no, I mean, just in the NVCAP guideline, it only mentioned like UV coated glazing. I think we think that's not enough.
So bird friendly strategies
Yeah.
of design.
Yeah, or design.
So, I mean, one of the things that brought this up was that we're looking at the NVCAP has a series of design parameters within it, and we wanted this incorporated there. But we do need to be very careful to not make this a standalone guideline only for these particular buildings. Birds live everywhere. So, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I feel that I'm a bit more tentative about moving forward with implementing this as sort of a broad goal of the city. I do think that when we've seen bird safe glazing come up in our previous discussions, it's been in locations closer to the baylands. It's been in buildings that incorporate a vast quantity of glazing in their exterior facades. And I do feel a little uncomfortable implementing something broad strokes, not feeling like we really understand how big the problem is. I don't want to go putting a solution forward for something that's not necessarily actually a problem. Now, we've heard from members of the Audubon Society before, but I don't feel like we as a board have accurate information on how detrimental are these bird strikes to the birds in the city right now? Like how common is this, right? Are we going to be implementing changes to buildings and to clients' budgets and to the design intent of a building based on something that's not actually a large issue? And I just don't have the answer to that. I don't know if it's a large issue. And if it is, then yes, we should dig into this a little bit more. But I think step one is identifying, is this truly a problem in our city? Are we in a migratory path? Are we, home to a more endangered bird species? And right now, I just don't feel that we have that information. If we're trying to solve for a problem where it's just not that big of an impact, then I would have some concerns about that. So I don't feel personally comfortable sort of implementing anything at this time. And that might be the minority of the opinion. I'm not sure. It's, again, just my opinion as one board member, but I don't want to solve a problem that's not necessarily a problem, is how I would put that.
Board Member Chen, you just researched this. How big a problem is it?
Well, yeah, I just find it could happen anywhere, but as my colleague said, yeah, when we design the building, we have to balance lots of factors. It's not only the bird safety issue. There are lots of other things we need to think about. So, yeah, it's hard, but it's a broad topic. It's not just the building. Actually, we'll think about the wind turbine, right? It's not only the building. So I think it's more than what we can make a decision. But I want to put it there. It's also an important item for the applicant to think about it, right? Not limited just to the glazing, but also some other things you need to think about it.
I just want to say ditto to Kendra's comments. I think that she's right on there, that we could get sidetracked into spending a lot of time about this that we don't know enough about, and we don't really, and we oughtn't to be too concerned about it, unless we had data or something that said birds are dying by the dozens all over the place here. I do want to say that, when we get near waterways, that's where those things become kind of important. And so in some sense that there's a creek that runs through next to Fry's there, so it might be an issue there but probably I would say we shouldn't spend too much time thinking about it.
I agree. Why don't we not spend any more time thinking about it? So we appreciate the work of board members Chen and former board member Thompson. It's been a very educational report, and we're going to take that as an educational process at the moment. So thank you very much. Is there any other output, board member questions, comments, announcements? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.